Imagine having everything you ever dreamed of, yet feeling so alone, so lost, and so desperate for connection that you're willing to take your own life. Our guest today was right there, ready to take that last step. Join us and find out what stopped him. I'm Gail Tucker, and we're here to help you create your best life possible.
This is Lifestyle Magazine with your hosts, Dr. Charmaine Long, Obi DK, Lionel LaMountain, and Mike and Gail Tucker.
He went from a life of poverty to being a hit songwriter and top executive in the music industry, rubbing shoulders with celebrities on a daily basis. Author Jason Davis had seemingly everything you could want, but something important was lacking. Jason, we are so happy to have you with us.
I'm so happy to be here.
Thanks for taking the time and making the trip all the way from Florida.
Absolutely.
Now, we've already said that you were in the music industry, but we want to hear what led up to that. We want to go back to the beginning and hear your story.
Sure.
So tell us about your childhood.
Well, grew up in a small town in New Jersey. Pretty typical family, upper middle class. My mom and dad were both Jewish, not very religious, but I was bar mitzvahed as a kid.
So it still impacted your family?
Yeah, my grandfather on my mom's side was, would read from the Torah, and so I saw that.
Right.
And my dad was corporate America, kind of a rising star in corporate America. My mom stayed at home, and I was very happy as a child. Always drawn to music, whether it was an album cover or seeing. I remember seeing Kiss on television when I was a little boy and just being totally enthralled with it.
Really?
Michael Jackson. And so music was always something that I was drawn to.
Was it in the house a lot? Did your parents play music? Was it part of your family's culture?
My dad had a really big record collection. Oh, yeah? And I used to
the old vinyls, huh?
Yeah, and I remember being a little kid and I would sit with headphones on and lay down on the floor and listen to my dad's records.
Nice.
Linda Ronstadt, the Beatles, Dolly Parton.
I said wide.
So a variety.
Yeah. And at 10 years old, we moved, and my dad had gotten a promotion. And looking back now, I understand what was happening clearly, but as a kid, I didn't. He was under a lot of stress with his new position, and he was commuting hours a day to work. And my parents, God was not really the center of their life. And my dad and my mom started fighting a lot when I was around 11. And it was almost every night, and the fights were very loud. And I would hear my dad call my mom a lot of really bad names, and as a 11-year-old boy, I was confused. My daddy is not being nice to my mommy.
Yeah, and you loved your daddy.
Yeah, and I love my mom so much.
Exactly.
And I knew she was hurt. So I started worrying, are my parents going to separate?
Did you use music to cope through those severe emotional times at all?
I always loved music, but not at that moment.
Oh, really?
My grades, as a result, started slipping. I started having a hard time focusing in school. And my dad, when he was 16, lived on his own. So my dad used to deliver pharmaceuticals by bicycle to support himself at 16. So my dad, looking back, I could see this clearly, but my dad had a philosophy of, that's not going to happen to my son, under any circumstance. So when I was always a A+ student, and at 12, I started bringing home a few report cards that would have, some B's and a C, and my parents were concerned. And one report card I brought home had a D on it. And my dad came home from work that day, and he'd put things down in the kitchen, and he called me down to see my report card. And I was 12 at the time. And he looked down at it, and I was standing right next to him. And he looked at me and he said, you got a D. And I said, I'm really sorry, Dad. And he didn't say a word. He went into the foyer of our house, went into the closet, which is right in the next room, he took out a racquetball racket. And he didn't say a word. He came back into the kitchen, and he swung the racquetball racket and hit me, basically as hard as he could.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
I remember going down on the floor and just scurrying up the stairs, like scared for my life, screaming. And my dad chased me up the stairs.
First time this ever happened?
First time this ever happened.
Wow.
And he was hitting me all the way up the stairs, screaming, gurgling, screaming. And he beat me that night, and he said to me that night, he said, I'm going to do this to you every day until you bring home a better report card.
Oh, man.
And so it became a routine. It was kind of business as usual. He'd come home from work, in a suit and tie, calm. He would get changed, come into my room with objects or throw me around or punch me, kick me. And sometimes this would happen twice a night because I'd have to show him my homework every night. And if there was even one mistake, it would happen again, and so, I mean, he would, nightly throw me into lamps and punch me and kick me. And, keep in mind, I was only a little boy. And he was in his early 40s. And this went on for years. And, I'd have cuts on me. And,
oh, my goodness. So how did you cope with that? How did you get out of that?
Well, I was very suicidal. I wanted to die very badly because I was imprisoned.
Yes.
And there was no way out. And there was no, who are you going to talk to at 13?
Helpless.
Yeah, helpless.
Powerless.
Yeah. So I had an older cousin named Jennifer who I loved so much and I looked up to. And I was at her house. Our family was visiting theirs, and I was looking in her closet, and she had this big pile of clothes in her closet on the floor, and there was a guitar neck sticking out of the pile of clothes. And I said, "You have a guitar?" And I was always, enthralled with music. And she said, "Well, that's my ex-boyfriend's." And I said, "So you giving it back to him?" She said, "No, he told me to throw it out." I said, "So you're throwing out this guitar?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, if you're really throwing it out, like I would take it." And I had been begging my parents for a guitar and voice lessons, anything, and didn't get it. So she's like, "Well, yeah, take it." So I brought that guitar into my bedroom, and that acoustic guitar became my best friend.
Wow.
It became my therapist. It became, my everything. I'd cry to it. I would started writing songs to get out my feelings and to tell my story. And I couldn't write enough songs to express the pain that was inside.
Wow.
So.
We want to stop you right there, and we're going to come back in just a moment.
Stay with us. There's more Lifestyle Magazine coming up.
When I began this journey, it was about self-discovery and self-healing. What I learned, when you're adopted, you do feel differently than those that weren't. I was always happy, I was content, but I felt that there were pieces of my life puzzle missing. Adoption affects more than just a child. It touches so many people on both sides of each family. What I hope people get from this book is that blended families are a result of a fragmented situation, and it's not the child's fault. These decisions were made for them. This is not just my story. Both moms wrote a chapter on their perspective, and there is a chapter with advice on ways to find your biological family. This is a lifelong adventure with twists and turns every step of the way, but I encourage you to take that first step. There are many unplanned pregnancies, but there are no unplanned adoptions.
It all starts with a single seed. Tiny, aren't they? But don't let their size fool you. When these seeds come together, they can pack a powerful punch. That's when the real magic happens. Because when everything works together, you're able to make things. Great things. At Five Loaves Foundation, we believe that every single seed of giving matters. That's why our founders are covering 100% of all operating costs. So each dollar you give will impact a life directly. So we can provide free medical, dental, and vision clinics, empower children at orphanages, and build schools for the deaf and blind around the world. It's about coming together so we can make a big difference. We invite you to join us, and together we will build lasting change in this time of global uncertainty. Five Loaves Foundation. Giving done well.
We're back, and we're talking with author Jason Davis, and we're just about to hear about the moment that transformed his life. All right, so you began to use the guitar, write songs.
Yep.
Tell us what happened then.
Well, in the short of it, over the next 10 years of my life, from 13 to 23, I couldn't write enough songs. I would write songs every single day of my life. Even when I moved out of my house at 18, I would come home from a job, at the end of a 12-hour workday, and I'd write songs for 3 to 4 hours.
And songs come out of experience, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, even 8, 9, 10 years later, I was still writing from the place of just trying to deal with the emotions and the abuse and the things that I had been through.
But I understand something special happened with one of the songs.
Yeah, so after you do something for 10 years, you get good at it.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to. I was just loved writing, but you get good. And one of my songs, I was living in upstate New York, and I did not know God at this point in my life at all. I grew up Jewish. And I got a call one day at 23 years old, and it was from the senior vice president of a record company called Sparrow Records. It was a guy named Grant Cunningham.
Wow.
And he had heard one of my songs. One of my songs before the internet traveled almost 1,500 miles.
Really?
Like cassette
That's
tape.
amazing.
Cassette
That's
tape.
amazing.
And
So you got into the music industry because of that.
yeah, he called and he said, we'd like to, this landed on my desk. I tracked you down. We'd like to use this on a record. I said, so.
Awesome.
And he said, we'd like to put this song out as the first single on the radio. And
there your life just took off.
next thing you know,
Exploded.
Yeah, next thing you know, within 6 months, I had a #1 hit song on Christian radio. I won the Song of the Year on Christian radio in 2000.
Wow.
And the first check I had received from this song was 2 times more than I had ever made in a year.
Oh my goodness.
And
so then started coming the life that you
so I
live with that kind of money.
Yeah, so I started meeting record labels and moved to Los Angeles. And
Living the dream, the big life.
yeah, and life exploded.
Wow.
So I had presidents of record labels, sending messengers to my house to get CDs. I was having lunches and dinners with current chairmen of record labels.
Oh my goodness.
And that's like the perfect life for some people, but it
Yeah.
seems like that didn't last.
Well, I was at a point in Los Angeles where I had basically it all. I had all the money that I could never even have imagined I would have had. I had the cars and the assistants and the offices, and I really hit the very top of the music industry. And it was everything that I had ever dreamed of. But I had never dealt fully with those emotions from my childhood.
Yeah.
And they just kept coming back. And
So where did you end up because of that?
well, I ended up under a lot of stress financially because I had built this empire for myself that I had to maintain.
Yes.
And life was so unfulfilling for me because no matter what I bought, it wasn't doing it. And I ended up checking myself into the Marina, in Marina Del Rey, a Ritz-Carlton, with the intention of killing myself. I brought
Oh, my word.
3 bottles of sleeping pills, and the top of the mountain paid off void for me.
Yeah.
And I still had all the same issues, and I was still, a mess a lot. And I didn't want to be here anymore.
You see, you had everything that people would ever want and dream for and work for. Everything.
Yes.
And you had nothing.
At the very top of the mountain, it was the most empty I'd ever
It's
felt.
like success without fulfillment really isn't success, still failure to some degree.
Yeah, I would say that it was success without feeling loved.
Oh.
And I was really searching. I was buying things and searching the whole world, and I thought success would make me
Somebody
feel
love me.
loved, and
Yeah.
it was really a search for love. And
So 3
What
bottles of
happened
pills.
in that room that night?
well, I checked in. I had 3 bottles of sleeping pills on the bed, and I was, crying, kind of replaying my whole life in my head, knowing that my life was about to end, and I didn't tell anybody where I was. And right as I was about to take the sleeping pills, my cell phone rang, and it was basically a call that led me to check out of the hotel.
And you
room.
answered your cell phone.
Yeah, it was one of my partners, and just seeing his name on my phone made me feel some warmth.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I felt, it would be nice to feel comforted right now. And so I picked it up, and just to hear his voice, I didn't tell him where I was. And there had been a guy that we had wanted to work with for 3 years before this. Never had any interest in working with us. And this guy represented, if I worked with him, we could maybe conquer another mountain in the music industry. And that was a dead issue. He calls and he says, Jason, you're not going to believe it. The guy that we've wanted to work with for 3 years is going to be in LA tomorrow. He called me just now and said that he wants to meet with you, and he's made a decision that he wants to work with us. And he'll be there tomorrow. Can you be there?
What a life.
All of a sudden, there's hope.
There was hope.
Something to hang on to.
Yeah, and
So you met with him.
yeah. So the
Tell
next
us
day,
about that meeting.
the next day we met. I checked out,
Yes.
and thank God, and we met. And I spent most of the time trying to sell him on how awesome, two empires coming together,
Exactly.
will dominate the whole world, kind of thing. And he was very quiet, and he ended up asking me really just one question. And he said, I've only got one question for you. And I said, what's your question? And he said, do you know Jesus Christ?
Wow.
Whoa.
And I was always open. I was a seeker, and I was like, hey, I'll listen to anybody about anything. I said, not really.
Did you know that about him, or this came as a surprise?
No, and it didn't really. When he asked me the question, I was like, okay, well, what do you want to tell me? And he asked me, have you ever read the Bible? And I said, not really. And it kind of surprised me that I hadn't at the time when he asked me that question. And he started.
Because you'd had songs on the top of the Christian charts.
Yes, but I was so blind to it.
Interesting, isn't it?
I was Jewish. I didn't believe in God, and these people were taking my songs, and I was receiving checks and awards, and I thanked them for that, but I had no idea what any of that was. So he started quoting me Bible scriptures, and it was the first time I ever heard anything from in the Bible. Wow. And he quoted me 1 John chapter 1, verse 7, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another in the blood of his son, Jesus Christ.
What you were looking for. Love.
Yes. Cleanses us from all sin. And there was a lot of sin that needed to be cleansed from me. And I asked him, I said, so is that basically saying, like, if I follow God, my life will kind of work out? And he said, that's exactly what that's saying. And so the next day I bought a Bible, and my life changed.
That's so cool.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
What a fantastic story.
Yeah.
And we are going to learn more about your story very soon, because we have our whole group that wants to talk to you about this and the decisions that you made.
Great.
There's a lot more of this story when we come back in just a moment.
Lifestyle Magazine will be right back.
Jason Davis has told us that his life was transformed. Someone introduced you to Jesus.
Yes.
What difference did that make in your life?
It changed everything. It was really awesome. The first time we spent the next few days talking about just him teaching me a little bit about God. And then the first time I ever heard from God was God told me basically to leave everything that I had in Los Angeles behind. And God told me to leave the car and the cars and the house and the money and
you did?
And just start over. And so I literally packed a bag of clothes. I moved back to the East Coast where I was originally from. And God said, if you follow me, I will rebuild your life the right way. And so I moved back. I ended up sleeping on a friend's parents' couch from the top of the mountain.
For more money than what you knew how to do with, to sleeping on a friend's couch.
Zero money.
That's awesome, yeah.
With clothes. And it was the happiest I'd ever been in my whole life. I had a bag of clothes, the Bible, and a sheet over me and at night. And I went back to there was a park that I used to hike at years before, and I went to this park. First weekend I was back, and I climbed up to this mountaintop. It was the first time in my life I really spoke to God, and I was up on this mountaintop, and I started crying, and I said, God, you know, why can't I find love? Like, you know, everything in my life, nothing lasts, like nothing sustains, and I just want to be loved, and I want to love somebody, and crying. And it was the second time I ever heard God speak to me. And he said, you have not found love because you have never loved me. And I instantly stopped crying, and I was like, I shook my head. I was like, you know what? You're right.
When you're right, you're right.
Yeah. And then 5 months later, I met my wife, Heather, who is just, I couldn't say enough about how amazing she is. She loved the Lord. I met her 5 months later. She's the first person that brought me to church, so I could start really learning more.
Obviously, suicide's not in the picture for you right now.
No, thank God.
All right.
Jason, I had a buddy of mine, one of my best friends, whose friend is a police officer who actually killed himself not long ago.
Yeah.
3 kids, wife, all that good stuff. What is some of the advice you would give to someone that is suicidal and is close to doing that, to step away from the darkness and get away from that moment where they feel hopeless?
Yeah. The greatest thing for me, even in just having a discouraged day, I mean, you know, because that's where it starts. It's always a seed, right, that grows. When I'm having a discouraged day today, you know, I'm usually like looking down. I'm like usually focused on my life and staring at my world. And life looks different from an airplane 30,000 feet. You know, so I tend to pull myself out, remind myself that, you know, I am a son. My identity is, you know, I'm not a business owner. I'm a son of the living God, and he's my dad. And when I understand and I remind myself that I'm God's like baby boy, and I'm so loved, and that is my true identity, that helps me.
So the concept is,
Yes.
yeah, the concept is don't look down, look up. Huh?
Yes. Yes.
We're going to stop on that concept and be back with a final word right after this.
There's more Lifestyle Magazine coming up.
Welcome back. Off camera, you shared an exciting piece of information with us. Yeah. What is that?
Well, a year, my dad passed away 2 years ago, but a year before my dad passed away, I was able to lead my dad to the Lord. And, you know, we totally reconciled our relationship, and God had just did an amazing thing between us.
That's incredible.
Such a miracle. Something that only God can bring about,
totally,
that healing.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your story, I think, has the potential to bring hope to a lot of people who right now are in that valley of the shadow.
Yeah.
They see no way out.
Yeah.
But you'd like to tell them that they have an opportunity to get out?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody listening that you know is in a dark spot to reach for God, and you know He's what helped me get out of my darkest hour, and I've never met somebody that reached for God and regretted it.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Your story is one that is incredible, turning abuse to love, rejection to acceptance, and to peace and to hope.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being a part of this one as well. We look forward to seeing you again next time. But until then, you take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching Lifestyle Magazine. To get a copy of today's offer, call 888-940-0062 or go to lifestyle.org. That's 888-940-0062 or lifestyle.org.
Welcome to Northwest Georgia, where you will discover fun downtown areas, plenty of outdoor activities, fabulous food and dining, and wonderful wineries, plus so much more. Nothing but the best in Georgia's Northwest.
Experience Georgia's Rome Outdoors, where the rivers meet and the mountains begin. Plan your visit now at romegeorgia.org.
Okeechobee's hometown to some of Florida's forgotten roots, where cowboys are real, cows outnumber people, and Southern hospitality is still a part of every day. Come and experience one of the world's most renowned fishing spots, Lake Okeechobee, where it's not a question as to who is on the end of the line, but what. This quaint community offers hunting, biking, hiking, and don't forget, up-close visits with wildlife. Come outside and play in Okeechobee, Florida.